Are you sick and tired of answering the same questions from your employees over and over again? This is one of the most common problems that business owners face when they're hiring employees or building out a team. So whether you're hiring your first employee or whether you've got an established team there, this video will show you how to overcome that problem. When I'm talking to business owners, this is one of the biggest complaints that I get, whether it's a single team member that's asking so many questions to the business owner, or whether it's a group of team members that are asking the same questions over and over again. This is one of the most common problems, and there's normally three reasons as to why this occurs in a business and why this is happening to you. Reason number one is that you have trained all of your team members to come to you as the first port of call for any question. And without you knowing, you may have trained your team members to do this. And what this causes is that anytime they're unsure of something, or anytime they come across a new problem, or anytime they come across something which they feel that they need to come to you, you have trained them, whether it's consciously or subconsciously trained them to come to you. And that's why you see that these common questions are coming up, and they're coming to you, whether that's by text message, whether that's by email, or whether that's coming to you in person and asking those questions. Now, luckily, personally, I hadn't come across this problem because I had trained my team members, or at least told them that they should come up with a solution within the framework of the business before they come to me with a question. So a lot of times employees, they would think of the solution themselves of the problem that they're facing, and then they would come to me and say, look, we're facing this problem, but we think that this is one of the solutions. What do you think? And this is the frameworks that you've set out for us in the business. Do you think that fits within the framework? So 50% of the question was already answered before they had actually come to me. And really, after the first few instances of that happening, I just told them that as long as within a certain budget and within the framework of the business, they should just go ahead and provide that solution to the customer or to the other staff member or wherever the situation may arise. But I speak to many business owners where they have not done this, and therefore their default position is that they're coming to you as a business owner. And I see the frustration that business owners have when they face this problem. And I'm not surprised that business owners like yourself are getting frustrated with this, because it's like a little child which is asking a million questions when actually they're not children. Your employees are not children. You're hiring them, you're paying them to do a job, and you've given them some training, and you expect them to get along and do it. But they're just not doing it. They're coming to you for every single question. Now, the other circumstances is that you've got maybe one employee or a group of employees that are coming to you with the same questions over and over again. And this is the one that actually happened to me. Now, before we go into the solutions of what needs to happen to resolve this situation, number one, the first situation where you've got employees that are coming to you with questions and you're the default person to go to, that's more of a behavior that needs to be changed within the culture of your business. But the second one actually has a simpler solution, because what you have is one or a number of employees that are coming to you with the same questions. It's a little bit easier to solve that. Now, in the first situation, you've actually built a culture within your business that employees will come to you as a default position, and that's why you get all of the questions thrown at you. The second one is a little bit more systemic and actually has a systematic solution as well, is that the same questions are coming up over and over again, and it has a bit of a simpler, or at least a faster solution to that. So let's tackle the first situation first. If, for example, you do have this culture within your organization where they are coming to you, then you need to sit down with your team members and you need to, number one, identify whether they understand their role, right? So you should have, when you hired them, right, this is your job role, this is what I expect from you as an employee. And by the way, if you did not do that in the interview process, or you didn't do that in the onboarding stage, the probationary period of that employee, then that's one of the things that needs to be done now. So fix the problem now. Sit down with them and map out exactly what it is that their role entails and what they have to do on a day-to-day basis. Now, surprisingly, or you might be surprised, that will solve about 50% of the issue that is happening, because they've now got clarity as to what their role entails. And when they've got clarity on that, they can actually normally get along with most of the job. And 80% of the time they know what they're doing. It's 20% of the time that they'll come to you. So therefore, a lot of that has been solved. But maybe you need to sit down with your entire team and just map out, right, marketing person, this is your job role. Salesperson, this is your job role. Delivery person, this is your job role. Customer service person, this is your job role. And do that for all of the employees that you have in your business. But you really need to build the behavior that, right, instead of you coming to me, do you already know what you need to do? And therefore, if you don't know what to do, let's work on that training. So that comes into a training situation that you need to do with that particular employee. Now, let's say you did do that and you did have the job roles mapped out and exactly what they need to do in their positions. They're coming to you to questions then that they don't know the answer to. So maybe you've trained them on what their job role is, but they're coming to you with problems and situations that occur for them in their particular roles. And in that situation, what you need to do is that you just need to map out some of the common problems that occur in that job role. So let's take a look at the example of sales. Everyone understands sales, right? So a salesperson, let's say, for example, you take sales calls, right? So that's how you do that. And of course, when a person comes onto a sales call, the first thing they're going to do the intro or opener, whatever you want to call it, right? That's building rapport. The next thing that they need to do is that they will do discovery, right? So in your discovery process, what do they need to do to do discovery? They will ask question number 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? So how many other questions that you need to set out in the sales script of exactly what they need to ask the person. Then the next thing is, of course, they're going to do the presentation of the solution, present solution, right? And let's say, for example, they need to, share screen and do the, presentation or PowerPoint, PowerPoint. And they need to go over points number 1, 2, 3 to actually present the solution. Then, of course, they go for the close. And you go through a particular way on how they want to do the close. So actually, before you do the close, you want to reinforce the presentation back to the solution, or the discovery points, I should say, the pain points that they had. This is, by the way, just a bit on the sales. Then you go for the close, and then, of course, you overcome objections, right? So with the objections, you will have, for example, let's say you've got the 5 most common objections in your niche. So this is your standard framework that you're presenting to your salesperson, that's what they need to do. Does your salesperson understand that they need to go through these points to actually close a sale? And if they do, then that's fantastic. Now, what ends up happening is that when you have salespeople and they're going through calls in your sales process, then they may come up with particular problems that they come across in, for example, the intro, right? So if in the intro they come up with problem number 1 or problem number 2, right? Now you start mapping out that in problem 1 scenario, this is what you should do. So let's say, for example, in the intro and the opener, you identified that actually the decision maker isn't on the call. So then you say, right, in this scenario, you are not going to continue with the sales conversation. You're going to do a rebook, right? So you're going to get the person to rebook for another day in which the decision maker is going to be on the call, right? And in problem number 2, you're going to do this. In problem number 3, you're going to do this. So that's when you're mapping out for the person exactly what they need to do. And this now comes onto the thing that you need to do to ensure that these questions don't come back to you. And that's, you need to map out a process. So how do you map out your process? Before I say a process, it's actually a workflow that you need to map out, right? So your entire business works on workflows, right? So let's just take any business. Any business has a marketing, right? I'm going to use M for marketing. Then it has sales. Then it has delivery, right? Then it has customer service, and it has finance. And especially today, you have IT as well, right? So you need some sort of IT solutions. Then you got HR and staff and everything. But these are your main things, right? Because without marketing, you can't get customers. Without sales, you can't convert those customers. Without the delivery, you can't actually deliver on the product service. Customer service, you're invariably going to have some sort of questions or inquiries from your customers. Then you have to collect cash, right? That's important, pounds or dollars, whichever one you want to use. And then, of course, you've got IT. which underpins the entire process nowadays, especially. So your entire business works on workflows. But let's say we're taking the example of sales, right? So even in take this example of sales, you're going to have particular, let's go back on this one. So even in sales, you're going to have particular workflow, right? So what does your workflow look like in sales? The marketing connects to sales, and the sales then connects to, for example, onboarding or fulfillment, whichever way your business works. Let's take a look at this example. So the lead books a call directly, okay, from a calendar page, right, of the salesperson. So it appears on the calendar of the salesperson and is booked for a particular day. So then on that day, the sales call happens. And if it closes, meaning the salesperson makes the sales, then the next thing that needs to happen is that it gets passed on to someone on onboarding who can do the fulfillment, okay? But if it doesn't close, right, so this goes on to, and this is a bit messed up, I'm doing it on the iPad here, but let's say, for example, if it does not close, because of whatever reason, and if it doesn't close, it'll go into two. So it can close later on, or the lead actually won't close at all. So if it can close on another day, then maybe you book a follow-up call, right? And if the lead is, like, for example, identified, this should be filtered out in the marketing stage, but let's say for whatever reason it comes onto the sales call, the lead is not qualified, right? So what happens to that lead? Let's say, for example, you end up bidding that lead completely. But what you can see is that there's step number 1 in that workflow, step number 2 in that workflow, step number 3 if it closes, right? So if it closes, then it goes on step number 4, I should say. Okay, it goes to step number 4. And if it doesn't close, so if it goes to 2 to 3B, then what happens in that scenario? Does it go to a book or follow-up, or does it go to not qualified? So then you need to work out what are the workflows in your business. Once you identify what the workflows are in your business, that's when you can map this out for your staff members. You can be like, right, in these scenarios, this is exactly what you need to do. Now, as a business owner, I'm sure you've heard of the 80-20 rule, right? And in this scenario, where we're saying that employees are coming to you to ask the same questions, what you're going to identify is that 80% of the situations are going to be resolved by 20% of your workflows, which means that you can build out 1 or 2 workflows, as we can see in this scenario, which we done. If it closes, then it goes there. And if it doesn't close, then it goes there. And if it doesn't close, it falls into 1, 2 scenarios, right? So these are your most common workflows that will answer 80% of the questions that are coming from your employees. So if you can do that, then you will find that your employees don't need to come to you to ask the question. They already identify what they need to do in their standard job. And if, for example, particular scenarios, which are the most common scenarios that occur in your business, happen, then this is what they need to do in situation number 1, or situation number 2, or situation number 3. And that's how you move away from being the default person that all of the questions are being directed to. So if you find yourself in this scenario where you do actually have all of the questions still coming to you, you have become the single bottleneck of your entire business. And that normally causes other problems as well. It means that your business is entirely reliant on you. You can't take days off. And if you take days off, you come back to a massive list of problems, or at least questions. You can't take a holiday. And talking about holidays, by the way, one of the ways that you can identify where your business is by taking the owner vacation test. There's a link in the description in which you can actually take the owner vacation test and see how reliant your business is on you, whether you can survive or your business can survive you taking a vacation. So it's a free quiz. Click the link in the description and take that. But coming back to the situation, you have become the single point bottleneck in your business. And if that's the case, you're preventing the growth of your business. You might be thinking that your employees are preventing the growth of your business, by coming to you and by not knowing what their job role is. It's just that you haven't mapped out the job role properly, you haven't mapped out the workflows properly, and that's what you need to do. Now, solving this problem of ensuring that the employees don't need to come to you for every single question makes your business much more valuable. And when your business is more valuable, is because it doesn't depend on you, right? Businesses which are dependent on the owner have no inherent value as to an exit. So that's why you need to exit the day to day, do the what I call an operational exit. And once you've done your operational exit, your business becomes valuable. Then you can keep it as an owner investor. And of course, you can focus on scaling, you can focus on growth, because now you have the time, you're not fixing the fires in your business. But let's say, for example, there comes a day where you do want to sell your business, then your business is actually more sellable. And businesses that don't rely on the owner are about 1 to 2x more valuable than businesses that do rely on the owner. And in fact, if your business relies on you, it's unsellable. It's just like you can't sell it. There's too many problems. The amount of businesses that I see that are completely unsellable because they're in that situation is unbelievable. So fix your owner dependency problem right now. Click the link in the description and take the owner vacation test. That will give you initial indications as to how reliant your business is on you right now. But the good news is that it can be fixed. But you need to work on the behaviors of your staff members, and you need to work on the workflows and the processes and systems that exist in your business. Once you do that, you get the freedom back. And that's ultimately why you probably started your business in the first place. Freedom from a boss, and freedom for income, and freedom for your life. So you can do the things that you want to do without having to sacrifice those things because you're stuck working in a 9 to 5. But instead of being stuck and working in a 9 to 5, you've actually become stuck working in your 8 to 8 in your business because it's just too reliant on you. But that's what we talk about in this channel, is that how you can exit the day to day, build a business which is not reliant on you as a business owner, and eliminate this owner dependency, and ultimately to exit your business so you can get the payday that you deserve. So click this video which is popping up, and I'll see you in the next video.